Welcome to Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson, the podcast where we head down the road of the supernatural and beyond. So sit back and hold on as we take a ride together to what lies in the unknown and beyond the veil. Beyond the Veil presents guest hosts David Bettenhausen and Karla Bogni-Kidd. Dave and Carla have been close friends since 1998, feeling a deeper spiritual kinship for each other. Dave and Carla had spontaneous memories of 29 past lives together while meditating. Now Dave and Carla spread the message of love and kindness and teach holistic approaches to healing. They teach meditation at their local university and senior centers. Dr. Dave was a registered nurse for 10 years before returning to medical school. He recently retired from his private practice at a small midwestern hospital. Carla recently retired as his office manager. They now share their message together. The gift of past lives and love is the answer. And now your host, Daniel Jackson, with part one of Get Off the Karmic Wheel.
Welcome to Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson, me, your host, Daniel Jackson. And today we have Dr. Dave and Carla on our show. How are you guys doing today?
We're great, Daniel.
Yep, things are good for us, Daniel. It's another good day.
Every day above ground is a good day until you have to come back again. Isn't that correct?
That's one perspective. Yes, I think that many of us don't really want to keep returning here, but we do.
Yeah, and we do, for the fact that a lot of times we are here to learn lessons and fulfill our purpose. But people are not really sure of what their lessons are or what their purpose is. And I try to tell them those things, but I have other people come on the show so they can give me not just their perspective, but how they feel about this. So what is it about learning lessons that you guys feel is the reason for doing that?
Well, Daniel, we'll talk about that a little bit. The first thing you need to know is that all communication is related to shared experience.
Absolutely.
So when you start talking about life here on Earth, we need to talk about shared experience. And one of the reasons and the purpose for being here is that shared experience. We develop communication. Most of the communication with the spiritual world is really telepathic.
Yes.
So if we're talking about telepathic communication, the only way to share it is by pictures, mental pictures, shared experience, shared communication. We think what we experience. We think our communication when we're talking telepathically.
Yes, and I absolutely agree with that too, because when I talk to people about doing their meditation, and when they meditate, they're going to be shown pictures. They're going to hear voices come within their minds, and they feel as though sometimes it's, oh, I'm hearing it, but you're not actually hearing it. What you're hearing is within your mind, because that's how they communicate with us.
Absolutely. And that sort of enters us into our experience and how it sort of happened for us. I was a physician. So in our medical office, they made us start using electronic medical records. And it was a horrible experience to start with. We all hated it. Most physicians didn't like it. We got used to it over time, but it was something that required a lot of time, effort, and energy. And Carla kept telling me I was becoming very grouchy and unapproachable.
And so I suggested to him, I was his office manager in the medical office that Dave owned. I suggested to him that perhaps he needed to see a counselor. He was not acting himself. He was unapproachable. He normally is like a cross between Fred Flintstone and Yogi Bear, but that person didn't exist anymore. Thank you, the government. And so, he wasn't real keen on me calling a counselor. So I was reading an AARP magazine one day about the benefits of doing meditation. So I brought it in and I said to Dave, what if we meditate as an office? I had meditated before years ago, but I thought it was something we could do before work as an office.
And so Carla convinced me. I said, sure, I'll try it. I was having all sorts of other issues in life at the same time. We started to meditate. It was almost immediately relaxing. It was fantastic as far as I got some of my own energy back, if you want to call it that. I became just taking a break from the computer and all the electronic stuff, meditating for 30 minutes. The patients would start to come in. I felt better already. It was wonderful. Other benefits I sort of discovered over that first year that we were meditating. I lost almost 100 pounds. Meditation decreases cortisol, the fat hormone, that stress hormone. It lowers your blood pressure, lowers blood sugar. It helps decrease stress. It increases dopamine, increases serotonin, those things that we give people to help with fight depression. Meditation was wonderful. And so it really had some physical changes with me. And then there was a day while I was meditating, and suddenly the patients were coming in, and we all jumped up and ran to our own little offices. And I was going to run down the hall, but I had to tell Carla that I thought I was speaking or seeing or experiencing her mother. Now, her mother had died 19 years before that, or 18, and I had never met her. But this woman kept appearing to me, and she reminded me of Carla from a side view. It's like I could imagine her eyelashes being the same. She was jovial, happy, and she kept showing me a shoe. So I had to tell Carla that I saw this shoe, that I think I was talking to her mother. Carla brought up on the computer.
I went over and Googled ballroom dancing shoes, and like 60 or 70 pairs showed up. And I said, which shoe? And he pointed to the exact shoe my mother had always worn. She was a ballroom dancer, but she wore the same type of, short pump, open-toed sandal for dress up, church, whatever. And so for him to pick that out, my sister also worked in the office at the time. We were both kind of, flabbergasted that he chose that. And then my sister went to her purse and she pulled out a picture of my mother. And she turned it to Dave and she said, is this who you were talking to? And Dave got real emotional. And we said, why are you so emotional? And he said, that is who I was talking to. And never having met her, we were interested to know why she was talking to Dave and not us.
And so the meditation became even more important to us, because we kept thinking maybe we'll reach somebody else, maybe we'll somehow experience something else. And during meditation, within a few days, I had a memory. Now, the memory was from a time in this life, in 1962. I was 3 years old. My family was from Nebraska. We got in a little blue sedan with green suitcases and drove across the country to Boston. My dad was going to graduate school. Carla and Paula in my office got excited. They was like, when did you live in Boston? Because they were both from Boston. I said, my dad was in graduate school, and the only real memory I have is married student housing and going to the beach that summer. And on the beach, I was running on the beach, and I could see the big Ferris wheel in the background and there people's feet hanging from it. I could see roller coasters, the souvenir shops along the beachfront. And I said, the strangest thing is, as I'm running on this beach, this little girl runs over and pushes me down. She sits on my chest. She gives me a kiss on the forehead. Then she jumps up. She puts both hands on her hips. And she's standing there in this little blue 2-piece ruffled bathing suit. And in the background, I hear a woman yell, Carla, that's not how little girls act.
And I remembered it. I didn't need to recall it during meditation. I was the youngest of 6 girls, good Catholic family. Parents were never getting divorced, but should have. They were always splitting up. But this particular day, we didn't have a car. We weren't well off, but Daddy had rented 2 cabs, and we had all gone to Revere Beach. And as Dave talked about this particular beach, Paula, my sister, and I knew it was Revere Beach, which we went to often because it had an amusement park with it. And for whatever reason, when I got there that day, I didn't have my bathing suit. Normally, I would have inherited one from one of my older sisters, but we went across the street to one of those little souvenir shops, and my parents could not afford to, but they bought me my first brand new 2-piece blue ruffled bathing suit, etched in my mind forever. never having new things, always getting clothes passed down from my sisters, remembering that, that was unbelievable. So more chills ran up our spine.
And so meditation was opening all these things. And then there was a day where a woman appeared to me, and her name was Isabella. And just like when we were talking before, Daniel, it's like I could hear her, but it wasn't sound,
Right.
but it was vibration, feel, emotion, things were there. And she said, well, I've been with you for 6,000 years. And I'm like, I don't know what this means. I'm raised Catholic. I thought it was strange when I was talking to Carla's mother, let alone that this entity
guide.
being who says she's my spirit guide is talking to me. And she's telling me that she's there with the angels and that there's all this going on. And I literally think that, well, maybe Carla was right. I should have gone to the counselor. I've lost my mind. There is stuff here that I don't understand.
No.
And then the next day I have another memory. And during this memory, I'm standing in a dark alley behind a bar, and I look across the alley, and Carla's standing there. Now, when I say Carla's standing there, I know it's Carla, but she doesn't look exactly like Carla.
No, I'm younger and thinner.
Yes, much younger, much thinner. She still has steel
Carla
blue
just-
eyes.
Carla just said,
But she has-
but you just said much thinner. Oh boy.
Hey.
Hey, yeah.
And
Told you I'd pick up
she's got a, you do, Daniel.
on.
And she has this little gold band on. Her hair is slicked back. She's got fringed skirt.
Look like a flag.
She looks like a flapper. I see two flashlights. I hear two bangs. I realize I'm shot and hit in the chest. I'm thrown on the ground and I know I'm dying. The next day during meditation, I get part of the story some more, but before this event. And I'm in a small little very old fashioned car, and I'm heading to Ashland Auditorium in Chicago. And it's 1925. And I'm going to the wedding of a man named Angelo that I know from the bank that I work at. And I've gotten an invitation, and I walk up Ashland Auditorium, and there's a makeshift church in this auditorium, and thousands of people are inside. And I sit down at the wedding, and the same woman I saw in the alley walks out and is the wedding singer. And she's singing Maria, and I start to cry. After the wedding, I find her at the reception, and I keep pestering her until she agrees to go to breakfast with me the next day. At breakfast the next day, I meet a woman named Ruby Donaldson, who tells me her parents' names are James and Anna Donaldson, and that she moved from Bullock, Georgia, to become a singer and a dressmaker. And we take a walk along the Chicago coastline on January 11th, 1925. I return her to her little apartment on Loomis Street in Little Italy in Chicago. That's the memory. And Carla goes looking.
So I figured, it wasn't that long ago. I should be able to find some sort of evidence to prove it.
Records.
So I got onto ancestry.com. I'm sorry?
No, it's just saying
I got
records. Our records seem to go back maybe 100 or 2 years or so like that.
Yes.
We
Yes.
didn't, the people did not keep a lot of paper records of what happened before that because they just didn't, because they didn't
No.
reason to do it,
Yes. But I did find corroborating information. I found Ruby Donaldson, born in Bullock, Georgia in 1904,
Did you
to
find a
Anna and
picture?
James Donaldson, one of 11 children. I found pictures of her siblings and her parents, but not one of me.
Because the picture you would
And
have
then I
found,
found,
you may have found a picture of a woman who looks similarly like you,
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
because it's just a different
Um,
version of
I
you.
did find, exactly,
Exactly.
very
Which
similar.
is what I
And
tell
Dave
people all
says
the
my
time.
personality has always been similar.
Right, because each time that you come through into this life, what comes through from your previous lives are what makes up your personality, what makes up your sense of humor. Just like the soul that's inside of you,
Absolutely.
the soul that's inside of you now doesn't look like you. It looks like you the last time that you were here.
Mhm.
And so she kept doing the research, and she found the wedding announcement in the paper of Angela Jenna, born, married on December 10th, 1925 to Lucille Spinola.
And the
And,
wedding cake, and then there were 3,000 guests.
and it occurred at Ashland Auditorium in
Mhm.
Chicago. And he was a mobster before Al Capone in Little Italy, which we didn't know that he existed. We'd heard of Al Capone, but we hadn't heard of Angelo Jenna.
For the bloody Jenna brothers.
And we're like, okay, where is all this coming from? And we got more of the story on Ruby and JJ as we meditated. There was a day when I started to tell her more of the story. And as I'm telling her the story, I literally become JJ right in front of her. And Carla starts to respond as Ruby Donaldson. And the conversation happens again like it did in 1925, as we have a shared memory. And we became fascinated with reincarnation after that. You know, we started looking at all the research that they did at the University of Virginia Department of Perceptual Studies. We started looking at religion. Isabella kept showing up. She kept telling us parts of stories, lessons from those lives. And then we started documenting and writing everything down. Soon we found 42 past lives for me and 34 for Carla. And we found shared experiences in 29 of them. Not always as a love interest. Sometimes it was a mother son. Sometimes it was sister and brother. Sometimes it was next door neighbor or friend. But in 29 lives, there was always some sort of love that was shared between the two, not always romantic.
Yeah, that was
But-
one of
but
the questions
Love was love.
I was going to ask you a question about that, which was how many times were the roles reversed? Because as I tell everybody, we come back into these lives all the time, but we don't always come back in the same body either. Sometimes we come back in different bodies. Some of us come back as men, some of us come back as women, and then the roles get reversed all the time because we're here to learn lessons within each different body. So I'm sure you guys reversed roles all
Right.
the time.
And correct.
No,
Not as the male female role, but it's interesting that you bring this up because you want to,
no, go ahead.
we found role reversals many times because we've got, like for me, 42 lives in a row.
Right.
And so there's a time when we are Vikings landing on the Scottish soil. In the next life, we're Scottish fighting the English. In the next life, we're English fighting the Scottish. In the next life, Carla's of Viking descent and returns into England. So literally, we're fighting on different sides of even the same war at times, so that we're experiencing the other side.
Right.
So that sort of follows that. We've also been kings and queens, or slave and slave owner, on opposite sides of the same issues in many lives, because we live both sides to learn compassion for what the other side is experiencing. And
Yeah.
it does happen for men and women that they can role reversal, or it can happen. We've been taught lessons like it can happen for, if you're an alcoholic and you raise a son when you're an alcoholic, that gets passed along family lines, but you can return in that family line 2 or 3 lives down the line, because you will have an alcoholic father, so that you will experience the other side or so that you can break the chain,
Yes,
change the chain. Someone
yes,
has to step up and stop the slavery or stop the alcoholism or stop the abuse, because that's the role to stop the chain.
yes. I use alcoholism a lot for an analogy for people with their own decision making, whereas I tell them that if you were my best friend and you were an alcoholic, I would do everything that I could possibly do to help you along the lines, or take you to classes, take you to AA, keep you away from drugs and alcohol, keep you away from the bars, although who doesn't like a good strip club every now and then? But yeah, you keep them away from all that stuff. But yes, you just got the joke. But what happens at that point is I could do all those things for you, but I can't do them until you choose as the alcoholic to actually stop drinking. So no matter what I say and do, isn't going to
Yes.
make a difference until you choose to stop drinking, which were along the lines, as you say, breaks the chain of deciding not to do this anymore. But again, that's everyone's choice in this
And
world.
Daniel,
Mhm.
that really gets down to almost the bottom line lesson, which everything you do is a choice, and every choice has a consequence, and you're
Yeah.
responsible for your own actions.
Yes.
And Isabella's lesson broke it down into 5 simple rules.
Actually, she said, everybody knows the 10 Commandments, but should just make it easier for everybody. In
Yeah.
case you didn't, if you live a life without conceit, jealousy, selfishness, and with forgiveness and love, everything else that you do falls under one of those categories. You'll get off the karmic wheel. So if you think about that, every time you make a choice or a decision, ask yourself, is this out of conceit, selfishness, jealousy, or unforgiveness? And if it is, stop, evaluate, reevaluate if you have to, and then make the decision and try to make
Yes.
it out of compassion and love.
Yes, absolutely. As I tell everybody, we learn these things here when we come to Earth from part of the learning experience. But we learn how to have pain, anger, sorrow, grief, guilt, anguish, all this other stuff. It's up to us to make the choice on whether we act on those things. And we don't have to act on any of them if we don't want to. We don't have to be angry at someone. We don't have to be jealous. We don't have to have greed over someone or power over anyone. We're not supposed to have power and control over anyone anyway. It's just that the world taught us to have that. But we don't have to feel as though, we don't have to let people convince us that we are horrible people or we are not good enough, because we are all good enough to do anything in this world. We just have to have faith in that. But this is part of the learning process. We have to decide to learn to let that stuff go and then move forward with that, with positive thinking.
Like Isabella says, it's not what happens to you in life, it's what you choose to do and how you choose to react to it.
Yes, because you can be anything, you can do or be anything you want to be in this world, but you have to have that, you have to make the choice to do that, and you have to have faith in yourself enough to want to do that. And not a lot of people do, and that's the issues in this world. And I can feel your pain from the very beginning of your story about the medical records part, because before I found out that I was a medium, I had gone back to school for electronic health records, and I did medical health records in prison.
Oh,
And when I went in and did that, this was the point where we were transitioning from doing paper records into electronic records. And I used to sit there and scan forms all day long. So yeah, and I know all the doctors did not know this stuff. It was horrible then. I'm sure it's a little bit better now, but yeah, no, I feel your pain. So I
Yeah,
get it. So
we're all used to it.
yeah, we're all so used to a paper
So we had,
record,
we had an experience related to stress.
Yes, and then absolutely with the meditation, as I always tell people, they always want messages, but they're not understanding of how they can get those messages. And I stress to them, but horrible word to use, but I stress to them, the best way you're going to get messages is through meditation. But in order to do meditation and in order to get clear messages, you have to have a clear mind. And in the idea of having a clear mind, what are you doing at that moment? You're releasing everything from your mind, including stress.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Yep. That's why I said before we did this interview, I'm in your space because I understand it, because this is what I teach people all the time. I do teaching videos as well about not per se how to get them into meditation, but the aspects of doing meditation and the benefits of what this will do for you. It'll release all that stuff from your mind, because when you're always going into meditation and you're learning how to release it, then why can't you learn to release it for the rest of everything else that's going on in your life?
Correct, Daniel, and really gets to the point where so many discussions lead to something regarding adversity and how terrible life is and suffering. And if you're an eternal being, does it matter?
No. It matters if you
No.
let it matter to you, but if you
you're gonna
not let it matter.
Yeah.
But again, like I just said,
we're just successful when we overcome adversity.
yes, and it's choosing to want to overcome the adversity in your lives. But the unfortunate part that we have going on in this world is the world narrative that is out there doesn't want us to know how much power and control we actually have over ourselves, because they want us to believe that we need to rely on them for everything. You know, I know you're a doctor, but in another sense that I tell people that you have a choice. There, a lot of these feelings and a lot of these things are going on in our lives. We are choosing to hold on to them. If you have depressive feelings within inside of you, the reason you have them is because you have chosen to hold on to them. Just like, you know, in a sense, again, no offense, Doc, but in a sense that we would send someone to a doctor to help us with our depression, and the doctor's going to do one of two things. They're going to either give you some medicine for that's going to suppress all that stuff, but it's still going to be there. Or two, they're going to send you to a specialist who is going to help you talk you through this. But you know what people could do? They could talk themselves through it and just let it go. They just don't understand that. But the world wants us to believe. They want us to believe that we have to rely on them for everything. Where if we looked inside within ourselves and connected with ourselves on the inside and spirit by doing at the same time, you would realize that you don't need everyone else's help. You could help change yourself by doing that yourself, by making better choices, by learning to let it go, and by understanding that you could actually heal yourself within yourself. But people don't want to do that because the world has convinced us we can't do that. But you're here to tell everybody here.
Well, and people don't want to take responsibility.
Right, because they want everybody else to do it for them, because they don't want to take on their own responsibility.
They want a free pill that makes it all better.
Yeah, I always tell people all the time, you want the free pill is not going to help you with your diet. There's only one diet that works. Eat less and move more. That's all. But people don't want that. They want to go to Jenny Craig. You know, I mean, I was sick earlier this year. I got the flu. We moved out to Arizona back in December, and then I ended up getting the flu. And I was in bed for 3.5 weeks, and I lost 30 pounds in 3.5 weeks. As I always tell everybody, yeah, I tell everybody, I don't recommend that as a diet plan, but Jenny Craig doesn't have shit on me. So yeah, you can learn it to, yeah. I used to be like 200 pounds, now I'm like 170. But you can learn to take care of yourself, but you have to want to do that too. You have to want to have the gumption to want to do that, and to learn to make decisions for yourself without relying on everyone else to make them for you.
And the other thing, Daniel, for every physician, certainly there's different perspectives.
Yes.
But one of the perspectives is, you know, stress literally does cause disease. And so addressing your own stress gets rid of disease.
Yes.
So, and you can do that. Now, the other thing that we really do in medicine that is successful is attempting to restore you back to where you were. It's not, we don't fix your problem.
Right.
We a lot of times restore you back to where you were, and hopefully you can maintain that on your own.
Yes. Yes.
It's really a matter of self-healing almost all the time. You know, sometimes a lot of medicine is biomechanics, trying, orthopedics is restoring yourself physically. They replace a part, but it's trying to put you back to a spot where you can be stable yourself.
Right.
We
Right.
do give blood pressure medicine because your blood pressure has gotten so bad that we need to control it so that it doesn't cause more damage.
Right.
We are really controlling the blood pressure by manipulating something else.
Yes.
It's not, we're not fixing your blood pressure. We're manipulating something else. Again, meditation can reduce blood pressure. If it's really pathologically high, we give you a pill because it's dangerous to have it pathologically high. If your blood sugar is pathologically high and we can't control it with diet and exercise, we give a pill to lower the blood sugar because it's going to cause damage somewhere else. We're not really fixing it.
Right.
We're controlling it because you can fix it yourself easier.
Unless you have a broken bone or something like that, and then you're fixing that to put it back into the place where it normally was. As I tell people, doctors can fix the broken bones and they can mend the heart or other parts of the body. But what they cannot do is, as you guys are talking about now, they can't fix your soul.
Mm-mm.
Correct. Fixing your soul is your responsibility.
Yes, because as I always tell everybody, there's two rules in this world, and as long as you comprehend the rules and you follow the rules and understand them, you're going to appreciate your lives and everyone else's life around you. And rule number one is people die every day, and rule number two is you can't change rule number one. When it's your time to go, it just is. But when you leave here, you may have to come back and do it all over again because you didn't learn the lessons that you needed to learn. So we have to come back and learn the lessons and fulfill that purpose and try to get it done.
And life is all about learning, growing,
Yes, we're all
learning compassion, learning
Yeah.
love.
Yeah, we're learning all the time. And I read a thing on Facebook one time. It was a picture of this monk sitting there, and he said that being still, being quiet is blissful. But in my mind, as Spirit tells me, if you're doing nothing, if you're just being quiet, you're not doing anything. You're not helping anyone. You're not learning anything.
Mhm.
Oh, Daniel, you might be the first host that's ever said that, but this is one of those, I love that because this is one of the things Isabella said. The choice to do nothing is still a choice.
Right.
It's a choice that has karmic reality.
Yes.
If you don't try to help another, you're still failing. If you're a parent who doesn't parent because you're making a choice not to be involved,
Right.
it has karmic reality.
Yes.
Those are choices to do nothing, and choices to do nothing carry just as much karma as choices to do the wrong thing.
Yes, I tell people all the time, you have two lives you can live here. You can live the alternative path or you can live the correct path. And if you're living the alternative path, what you're doing is you're doing nothing. You're not helping anybody. You hate people and you don't want to do anything about anything like that. And you're just going to return back to learn those lessons again. Or you're living the correct path, which is fulfilling your purpose, which means your purpose is to go out, is we are here to help each other just for the sake of helping, not just because we can, but just because we should. And we can all do this all the time in a physical way. Someone will come up to you and say, hey, I need, excuse me, miss, I'm lost. Can you help me? And it's up to you to use your free will to decide whether or not you're going to do that. Like I said, you could say, oh, I hate people and I'm not going to help you and blah, 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 and get away from me. Or you physically help that person and you help them find their way and you get on that, and then you stay on that correct path, and that'll help you to get that lesson learned in your life so you don't have to continuously repeat it over and over and over again. But people, it's a hard deal here. People don't want to help other people all the time. Just imagine what this place would be if we were always helping each other all the time. We wouldn't have so much war and famine and all these other horrible things that are going on in our lives. But when do we learn to turn around and figure this out? What is it going to take for us to figure this out?
Yeah, Daniel, something else that we often tell people, and what you just said reminded me, really we come with only two purposes. It's either to help someone or test someone. We're either returning as a soul group with the same people, and it's either as a karmic mate or a family mate, however you would like to call that. But we're either a test for someone else or we're here to help them.
Yes.
And the test is really to help them
Yes.
grow. So the purpose is that we're going to hopefully all someday be family mates, no more karmic mates, no one who's testing us, only to help us. And when we get to a point where we're only helping each other, or we're all serving with compassion and love, we can really get off this entire wheel. We
Yes,
can return back to God, creator, Tao, source, whatever you would like to call that. I don't like to define it. I call it God because I was raised Catholic and Carla was raised Catholic, but
And so was I.
return to your original soul purpose, which is to love and compassion. After we've experienced all these things, you return back to heaven or the spiritual realm, the world, the surrounding with angels and the spirit guides, and they're meant to ascend back to that point.
Yes.
And what you've learned through all of your lives is that adversity means nothing. And then you return to the state of bliss without wants or needs.
Right.
And people always say, well, won't you be bored?
No.
You can't be bored without wants or needs.
No.
It can't be done.
Yeah.
Boredom is a need.
Yeah, that's what I try to tell people here within the reasoning of Jesus being here to show us that we could all share everything in the world, take care of each other. And you could go to a doctor just to be healed by that doctor and not to have to pay for it. Or I could have a Porsche, you could have a Porsche, we could all have a Porsche. We could all put the cool little doodads on the Porsches, because the only reason we have a Porsche now is to show a little bit of a status and how much better I am than you. But if we all can have one, then the wants and needs are going to change at that point, because if everyone can have one, then we all go back to the original idea that we are all equal. We all came to this place equal. We're all going back as equals, as long as you choose to go back. But back to that particular place. But where are we going? As I like to say, we're all going back home to the original family, which is the soul family, which we're in a place where we are all related to each other.
Mhm.
That's where we're going to. And if we were to really realize that
All
we're all
connected.
related,
We're all interconnected.
yes, if we realize that here, then maybe we could change things so we could get done with this experience here and go back home.
Again, Daniel, I love because you have certain perspectives that come through that Isabella's always shared. One of her favorite lines is, yes, you are all special, and just none of you are more special.
Right. Yeah. People out in the world are famous. Why?
And once you learn that,
You make them famous.
correct.
Well, and we've all been kings and queens. We've all been paupers. We've all been saints and sinners. We've all taken our turns. There's no reason for jealousy. There's no reason to want what another one has, because we've had it at some point in our life.
Or
Yes,
lives.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And as within the as I tell people, when you're doing the past life regression, the only reason a lot of people want to do past life regressions these days is because, or the ancestry.com, is because they want a story to tell someone else about, look at the I used to have royalty in my family, or I had this and I had that. But as I tell everybody, you've been here so many times, you've had to come back and repeat these lives so many times. We are all from all over this world. We have all been in royalty. We've all had kings and queens and mayors and presidents and Indian tribes. We've all been a part of that many, many times before. You don't need to tell a story. What's important with your life is what you do now in this life, so that you don't have to come back and try to do this over again.
Absolutely, Daniel. And that is another one of the same messages. You might have been a king, so it sounds exciting that you found this out when you did a past life regression. But you weren't doing something right because you're still here.
Right.
So being a king doesn't make you special.
No, no.
Mhm.
Yes, doesn't make you special. It probably meant you were a failure at the king.
Yes, I tell people all the time, we have all been to heaven. If you look out in the world right now and you see the other 9 billion people who are here on earth right now, they have all been to heaven. And just like you, they had to come back.
Mhm.
Correct.
What makes them so
That's
special now?
the actual lesson.
Nothing.
Nothing.
No.
The only thing that makes them special is they have an opportunity now to change tomorrow.
Yes. Yes.
So they have an opportunity now. And so some of the things they can do, if don't support the next war unless it's to protect the innocent.
Yes.
Don't pollute this world because you need a place to return to. Not
Yes.
only are you protecting this for your children, but you're protecting it for you because you're coming back here if you're polluting, because you're going to come back to a world worse than it is today.
Yes.
So today, make the world better. Because if you make the world better today, if you do come back, it's going to be a better place than you're living now. If you make the world worse now, it's going to be a worse place when you come back.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always tell people that as well, that you want to get your lives, your lessons done. You don't want to have to keep returning, because every time you come back into this world, you don't know how it's going to be. You've been here many, many, many times before, where there were no cars or were no computers or were no running water. And if we continue on this path that we are on now, we're going to get back to a space again where there is no cars, there is no running water, and there's no computers. So why do you want to continue to do that? Why does anyone?
Correct.
No one wants to live in that. We all want to live as comfortably as we can. But in order to do that, we have to learn some lessons. And those lessons are having to make some sacrifices in our lives so that we continue that if we have to the next time around, or for anyone else who has to be here the next time around.
This was Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson with Dave and Carla in part 1 of Get Off the Karmic Wheel. Subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any episodes. For more information about Dave and Carla, visit them at www.thegiftofpastlives.com. Their books are available now on Amazon. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss part 2. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson.